I do actually kind of want to talk about Bowie because, I mean, for me, that was kind of what sparked it. Like when Greg and I were talking, I think we were getting like a little overly ambitious. Like, we'll talk about The Prestige. We'll talk about like all these movies. I was like, that's a lot of movies to watch for one episode. So like,
A lot of
let's
movies.
just do Labyrinth, but maybe we can talk about his acting overall. And I think his alter egos, like Aladdin saying, you know, like, I'm drawing blank, Ziggy Stardust, all this stuff, like his onstage alter egos and like personas, I think really lend to being a good actor, you know, or at least like fitting into this pretty well. He's played some fairly famous people, you know, Last Temptation of Christ, he played Pontius Pilate. In The Prestige, he played Nikola Tesla. In the Basquiat movie, he played Andy Warhol. And I learned that he actually like used Andy's like turtleneck jacket and wig. Like they actually let him wear that for the movie, which is kind of crazy.
I mean, if you're going to let someone, you'd let David Bowie.
Yeah, exactly. Give it to Bowie for sure. And my favorite performance, I don't know if any of you guys have watched the Ricky Gervais series called Extras, where he's an actor, but there's a great scene where they're at like a party and they're in the VIP section and Bowie's there. But Bowie like starts singing a song about the Ricky Gervais character and calling him like little fat man and just gets everyone else to sing it like right into his face. Like it's really funny.
No,
if you're listening or watching, I'll lay it right now.
He's got no style, he's got no grace, he's banal and facile, he's a fat waste of space. Yeah. Everybody sing that last line. 1, 2, 3. He's banal and facile, he's a fat waste of space.
But I think he's great, and obviously like he had some great early performances, like The Man Who Fell to Earth. He's a good actor, and I think a lot of that comes from just being a stage performer, just being on stage and being comfortable like that. I kind of wanted to throw it out to you guys if you have any other favorite Bowie performances or anything that sticks out to you that you just want to like throw out there and mention real quick. And Graydon, I'll toss it to you first.
I don't know. I mean, Man Who Fell to Earth like comes to mind first because that was his first major role, and he only had a few major roles, right? Like that and Labyrinth and stuff. And it's just funny to me thinking about like the people who wrote this sci-fi movie in like 76.
Mm-hmm.
We need an alien. He's going to fall to Earth looking for water. I don't know if you've been listening to music like 4 years ago, but there's this guy who's obsessed with space. I think he'd be a really good fit for this movie.
And he sort of looks a little otherworldly.
Oh,
you know what I mean?
he's really is like what is he? The thin white duke? Like he really looks quite thin. I watched it recently. It's interesting. It's just like kind of 70s B grade. A lot of like unnecessary nipples.
You had my attention, but
his hair in that is great though. That's
I
think it was the inspiration
red.
for like the red and orange guys, like in Labyrinth. Like remember his hair from the Man Who Fell to Earth? Let's make creatures out of that.
Never seen the movie, but I do know the look you're talking about.
I think that's a great call. Yeah, you're right. That was a great point too. Like he didn't get a whole lot of like leading man roles, like leading performances. But I think when he showed up, he was solid. So what about you, Matt? What performances do you like?
Well, so I think Prestige, I didn't even realize it was Bowie the first time I saw it. And that was like, I mean, it just speaks to, I mean, anyone who knew Bowie probably knew him well, knew it was him, but like, to me, it was just the Tesla character. And then like, whenever I watched it the next time, I was like, oh, you know, the Leo DiCaprio meme where he's pointing at the TV. Like,
you're like, oh shit,
it's Bowie. I'm like telling people around me who already knew. They're like, yeah, it's David Bowie. But yeah, he's great in The Prestige. His cameo, obviously, in Zoolander is great.
All right, who's going to call this sucker?
If nobody has any objections, I believe I might be of service.
And then I can't remember if I saw this whole movie, but I remember him in Twin Peaks. He comes in and he's got like this Southern Texas accent, and it's really not good, but like it's Twin Peaks, so it didn't really need to be, but it was just a really bizarre cameo character. But you know, it was that perfect role for Bowie. If I were to pick a series that David Bowie would be in, it'd be Twin Peaks.
Yeah. He's the perfect fit for that.
Twin Peaks it was like a show on like Showtime or something.
David Lynch, yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I started watching that and I never got around to finishing it. And like people love that that series. Like it's sort of one of like
it's huge
culty.
Because there's like the early 90s one.
Yeah.
And then like just recently they added to it. I haven't seen the revival. Ben, did you see it?
Was it a movie or was it a series? I actually haven't seen any Twin Peaks.
Oh, okay. It was a mini series.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah, I remember I watched the first episode and then I never got into it, but I mean I really would love to. I mean the episode that I saw looked really cool. It has a really like cool slow burn to it like Lynch is famous for, but and
it feels like a Headspace movie. Like you have to be in the right spot to watch it. Like if you're not in the mood, it's not going to connect with you at all.
Right. And
that's how I interpret it anyway. Obviously I haven't seen it.
I mean the episode that I saw, but I don't know, Matt might be able to say more.
It was the series. They canceled it. And then they tried to bring it back, and it was called Twin Peaks Fire Walk with Me, and I think it was like a mini movie or something.
Oh, okay.
And that's what he's in, and nobody saw it. And that's where he's this weird like Southern character. Okay. But it wasn't even in like the iconic cult series that everybody's like so obsessed with. That's why no one has any idea he was in it.
So the cool thing about that, and like I think the cool thing about Bowie in general, is he seems to just like pick to do things, whether it's music or movies or, you know, fashion design or art or whatever it is. He seems to just do whatever seems interesting to him or fun or maybe just like, you know, seems maybe like just seems like a lark, you know, like the Zoolander thing, which is like, to me, that's the first thing I thought of when you're like Bowie in movies. I'm like, oh, the Zoolander. That's a pretty iconic moment. Obviously the Labyrinth, having just watched that, I think of that, but he just seems like a guy's like, yeah, sure, I'll be Nikola Tesla. Like, I'll be the alien that falls from the sky or whatever, you know, like, I think that just sort of encompasses the way he approached everything he did. He was never doing the same thing. He was constantly reinventing and just like chasing what he thought was cool and fun and interesting. And, you know, like lucky for us, he just happened to be good at pretty much everything he tried to do, you know? So we got a lot out of him. And, you know, I really like people like that, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
People that just kind of marching to the beat of their own drum, and yeah, we're all better for it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm with you. I think Zoolander is the one that this is the first thing that comes to mind. You know, as far as casting, like him as Pontius Pilate, you know, in Last Temptation of Christ was pretty cool, I think, especially for the time. Like, I don't think it was very expected. He's great in that.
Wasn't Willem Dafoe Jesus in that?
Yep. Yeah. Yeah. I think the Christmas, him and Bing Crosby singing Little Drummer Boy and Peace on Earth. I don't know why. It's just something that I think about every Christmas. Like that was good. Yeah. I mean, I know you brought it up in your notes and I just wanted to hit on it that I know Greydon went as well. I got to see Seal George sing the Life Aquatic soundtrack in person. And it's just one of the coolest concerts I've ever been to because he was like explaining how he got the job and all the songs and stuff. And I think his music in Life Aquatic is a large part of what makes that movie what it is. Like obviously Wes Anderson's great, the cast is great, but it's such a good soundtrack. And I think having Bowie in there is perfect.
That's what's interesting to me about how I just was so, I feel so lame saying it, but like unimpressed by the Labyrinth songs because like, anytime I hear a Bowie song in a movie, like he has, I can't remember, I think it's Major Tom or in The Secret Life of Walter Mitty when he takes off in the helicopter and Kristen Bell's looking at him from the ground, like that scene like brings me to tears. Like it's like genuinely moving to me, and a lot of that has to do with that song, you know, and so it's just the whole thing in Life Aquatic and just pretty much anytime I hear Bowie I love it. So I was just like, I guess I was just so ready to just automatically love the songs in the movie, and I just
for sure
I don't know,
too many synthesizers, man.
It's too much. Greydon, do you have a favorite scene or whatever line, anything from this movie that sticks out to you?
I do, but not to backtrack too much.
Please.
Can I give a small movie tidbit?
Of course.
Do we have time for a tidbit?
We got
time.
Yeah, all the time in the world.
Okay, so funny fact. Apparently, with his role as Pontius Pilate in the Scorsese film, Scorsese was originally debating between Bowie or Lou Reed.
Oh.
And it kind of came down to the two of them, and Lou Reed apparently really wanted it. And then at the last minute, Scorsese decided to go with Bowie, at which point Lou Reed was like, fuck this. I don't need to do movies. Like, I'm good. I got my music. It's fine. And it's only such a small scene, you know, like it's not a big thing, but it's kind of funny that something so small could have like a big impact, because who knows, maybe we'd have Lou Reed as Tesla, like, you know, it could be just weird. And
it's just funny because I can't imagine, like, at that point that this was happening, like, Lou Reed probably wasn't used to being told no. You know what I mean?
Yes.
Oh yeah.
She's like, yeah, I could just walk on to a movie. I could just be the Goblin King.
I'll be in a Scorsese movie, sure.
And I just, I guess he wasn't going for the Labyrinth. Yeah, you're right. Like, yeah, I can just walk into a Scorsese film, but like, I wonder if a lot of it was just like, fuck, and this is a mean thing to say about a person that's passed, but like, what would the insurance have been on him? You know what I mean? Like what would his like heroin budget have been? You know what I mean? Like,
really,
just
cranked up the budget.
Yeah.
To Lou Reed's estate, if you're listening to this, like and subscribe.
Please like and subscribe.
Send your hate mail to Tyler.
Straight.
It's funny. It's funny to think about, and who knows? Because it was like Bowie and Willem Dafoe, Goblin King meets the Green Goblin, and here we are.
I love it. Yeah. I think another interesting thing about this movie, Tyler, you mentioned it earlier before we started recording, but the other people in line for this role were Michael Jackson, Prince, and Mick Jagger. Is that right? Those three? Which, like, I can like visualize all of them doing this, but I don't think any of them as well as Bowie did it.
I feel like
it was perfect.
I want to see the Prince version, but I feel like some of this stuff gets like a little bit creepier with like his hypersexualized style of music. Like, not to say that Bowie isn't like sexual, but you know what I mean? Just like to see Prince dancing around with this girl, like, might have been a little more weird than I'm ready for.
True. And like, you know, I'm a big fan of all the short people out there. Shout out my mom, 5 foot. I love it. But maybe Prince being just as tall as Jennifer Connelly wouldn't have had the same kind of impact, you know, when you have this person who's like trying to intimidate you. It's like, no, we're the same
he would have
height.
been wearing the tallest
he would have platforms for sure. Yeah.
I mean, he already did, but
I don't know. I think for me, I've said it already, but I love the magic dance sequence. I really love when she's falling down and all the hands are grabbing her, like just the practical effects of this movie, I think were the best. Not
to jump ahead over Greydon's favorite line or scene, but that was my favorite moment in the movie, was the I just called the hands in the tunnel.
Sorry, I didn't even read it.
No, you're good.
So it's like,
if you wouldn't have said anything, Ben, we could have just made that work.
We'll cut it out.
We're peeking behind the curtain too much. No, I'm kidding. No, but it's so clever to have like the hands forming to the faces and mouths and talking, and just that whole idea. There's just like, it was stuff like that. And I know you guys are going to talk about some, but just the little visual tricks and little, you know, gotchas were so cool. Mm-hmm. And there's the hands one. I just was like, yeah, these guys are so good at this. Like, I never would have thought of that. It's so cool.
Graydon, what was your favorite part of this movie?
Hard to say. I mean, you already said my favorite line. Nothing, tra-la-la. Don't know why it gets me every time. I think it's so funny. It's not that funny, by the way.
But that's why it's so funny, because it's like the weirdest thing. It's just like, the more you
like,
see
why did you say that? Like, what? But you got him?
Her first line, too, when she's in the labyrinth, like, here we go, feet.
Yeah.
Like, what? What's that?
You know, there's so many takes on the cutting room floor.
So when I go to work
every day.
Yeah.
Like, that's the take they chose where he says tra-la-la. Like,
Jennifer, just improvise something, whatever you would say. Here we go, feet. All right.
Walking along.
Well, I guess we'll leave it in.
I don't know. Rewatching it, it's like every time I'm like, oh, this scene is cool. But again, I think I've just seen it too many times. Mm-hmm. I think 12-year-old me or 10-year-old me loved the farting rocks. Loved that. So funny. So funny. You just stink forever, though. Wow.
It's a gag.
Can you imagine? What about you, Matt?
Yeah, so like I kind of gave a background. Greydon showed me this movie at some point in middle school. And at that time, like I said, we're kind of going through this renaissance of 80s kids movies. And that opening sequence with Bowie's Underground song playing was just so cool. It's like with the echoey drums. So isn't she like in a park, like messing around?
Running in the rain.
Yeah.
Just
it's
LARPing
perfect.
by yourself.
Oh yeah. Perfect entry. And so I really like that starting sequence.
Nice.
I like how weird the stairs sequences later on in the castle where he's like walking around.
MC Escher.
Yeah.
Yeah. Just like, it's probably my least favorite musical number, but at the same time, it's like one of the more memorable scenes, just him like walking around. And part of it's because like, you just can't stop seeing the astronomically large anatomy that he has in his pants. We need to contact Jim Henson and like crowdfund a book that shows like the anatomy of like the Goblin King's race, because we need to see that thing.
I'm pretty sure Jim Henson had to create its own puppet.
Yeah,
it had its own mechanics.
Oh yeah,
it moved. You can't really tell, but it was its own living creature.
There was a puppeteer. Yeah, there was someone behind him.
It was Bowie. It was in Bowie's contract. He's like, look, here's the deal. I'm going to do this, but like we are going to be on full display.
I'm going to need a puppet.
So
yes,
like I've got a brand to keep up here. So
I want my pants to be a schmedium so people can see everything.
Like literally everything.
I mean, along those lines, this is a creepy movie. You know, Grady talked about like it was on Disney. And yeah, I mean, this gets like promoted as a kid's movie, and you know, in certain aspects, I see that. But I mean, this I feel like was a lot closer to like the Shining maze scene than anything else. You know, like this was like it's super creepy. Those goblins are scary. Like I can't imagine being a little kid and watching this and be like, yes, I'm fine. Nothing in this has bothered me at all. Like I love Ludo. He was probably my favorite. He's like a big oaf, you know, and like he's adorable, and he sounds like Ragnarok's Hulk to me, you know, or just like saying words and stuff, like just like broken sentences and everything.
That's right, Ludo. I'm Sarah.
Sarah.
So I liked him, but overall this movie is just kind of creepy. And some of the things in the rewatch, I was like, I didn't consciously remember where these things were from. I think I had associated a lot of them with speaking of Michael Jackson, the Disney Captain EO ride, for any of you that remember that at Disneyland. But you know, it's that Jim Henson puppeteering and stuff, but those red bird dudes that like throw their heads around stuff, and honestly like the knockers, I forgot that was from this, you know, just those kind of visuals. I was like, oh, okay, that's where this is from. Like it had just been a while, but it was somewhere just in my head. But all that being said, this is like almost stranger than any Alice in Wonderland movie. Like this is just, it's kind of creepy. I want to know what you guys thought about this and just any other thoughts you had about the movie. I'll throw it, you know, over to you, Greydon.
I still think it's creepy, dude. Like,
yeah,
I love it, but it's still creepy. And yeah, like touching back on my first memory of those orange dudes, like probably it was the scene where he swallows his own eyeballs and spits them into the fire. And 7-year-old me's like, what is going on? No, this is too much. But even honestly, I think the creepiest scene for me, and was until I watched it 50 times, was just the opening scene where she's in a room and she just called the Goblin King, and the goblins are like just kind of scurrying about, and it's kind of horror-esque.
Yeah.
Yes.
Where it's the creepy music and just like shadows moving around, and like even not too long ago, it scared me, you know, like it scared me watching it. I don't know. It's just too much for children, man. And that's the opening scene.
I know,
too much.
That's what jumped out to me watching it here was like, it's like, oh man, these goblins are scary. Exactly what we're talking about when she's calling to them and it just cuts to their faces and they're talking and stuff and they're creeping around the house and stuff. And it's funny because I do remember watching this as a kid. Like I said, it was a long time ago. And all I remembered was that there's a puppet that pees. When I remember thinking as a kid, like, oh, this must be like for adults. Like this movie is a movie with puppets for adults. But now watching it, I'm like, oh, this is obviously, well, maybe not obviously. It seems to be more a movie for kids. And so like maybe that's part of the reason it doesn't connect with me, because like it didn't connect when I was a kid because I didn't think it was for me, because I just didn't think that they would let a puppet pee in a kid's movie. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like it seemed too vulgar, I guess. And so now, and now watching it, I'm just like, but it doesn't seem like it's for me. It seems like it was more geared for kids. So like it just never found its sweet spot for me. And then also being older, I can recognize the troubling age differences and stuff that make it a little harder to like be on board with much of it. You know, obviously she's trying to get away from it. It's not like she's a willing participant, but you know, it's just, I don't know, it's a little tough, but I'm not going to harp on it too much. But yeah, it's just, it is like the tone of it, I just can't quite land. It's like, it's pretty terribly creepy, but it's technically for kids. I don't know.
There's a lot of terrifying stuff, but then you have farting rocks.
Yeah.
So it's like, who is this for?
And even just like the claustrophobia of when we first get into the labyrinth and it looks down both ways and they're infinitely long, like that gave me like anxiety. I'm like, oh, she's never getting out of here. Also, great design for a labyrinth. Your first decision has to be to go a mile in either direction, you know. Like it's easy to makes it difficult to backtrack, but
very true.
And also like I did think it was funny just how quickly she gave up. She was in there for like 45 seconds. Oh, I'm never gonna get out of here.
Like, nope, can't do it.
I thought that was funny.
Some of those visuals are cool though, like that one where, you know, she's like looks like she's in front of the wall, and then all of a sudden she's like steps forward.
Cool.
Like, that even got me this time. I was like, oh shit, that was great. That was super effective.
I knew it was gonna happen, not because I remember, but I just could, you know, I was like, oh, it's gonna be like a trick wall, but I was like, I couldn't see the seam, even though they have like the vines or whatever. But I was just like, usually you can kind of see the seam if you're looking for it, but I couldn't do it.
Nailed it.
Yeah.
What about you, Matt? What are your thoughts on the creepy factor?
I've watched this a couple times with my kids over the last couple of years. It didn't scare them. And obviously there's things that adults pick up on as creepy, and for whatever reason, kids don't. I don't know. But it hasn't really stuck with them, like for better or for worse. They don't necessarily, they're not like trying to watch it at all. They probably don't even think about it.
I feel bad for you.
I don't think about you at all.
That's good.
It also, I mean, it doesn't give them nightmares either. I wondered if like, and now when I'm watching movies, especially kid movies, I try to picture like what the pitch was at the table at the studio, like who was pitching this idea, like how did they greenlight it? Because I mean, when you make a kids movie, there's just like so much that has to be discussed to like make it a kids movie, and so many things that need to be talked through, especially when you're talking about like ratings back in the day. Like if they're shooting for a G rating or a PG rating, it's like, oh, well, we have to, you know, edit this out, like tone back the bulge, you know, blur his crotch a little more. But it seemed like this one, like if I was to pick a takeaway, are they maybe trying to say like to young babysitters, like don't wish your kids away, like be careful what you wish 80s. For. Yeah,
I don't know.
Like that.
Like big sisters out there, don't wish for your baby to go away because the Goblin King might come into your room.
You can't have that. We'll ship you off to Bowie.
Yep.
So don't do that.
You don't want to. Yeah, you don't want to meet this Muppet. So I did a few years ago. I watched the movie Little Monsters with Howie Mandel and
Is Fred Savage in that one? Or is that a different one? Okay, yeah.
And that's another one that I remember being a kid's movie, and I remember liking it. Like they move the bed and they can go under the ground into like this cool like goblin area, but like that is like a horrible kids movie. Like Howie Mandel already is just like a bad guy. Like a kid is leaving his room to hang out with just this really bad guy. And there's nothing good to come of it. Like at least from the Labyrinth, you can maybe, I mean, it's a stretch, but you could say, okay, don't wish that you aren't babysitting your kids at night. But Little Monsters, it's like, what's the takeaway here? Like going with that
Howie
guy
Mandel
looks
will not
kind
shake your
of fun.
hand.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. That's it.
But yeah, that's another creepy one.
For sure. I think watching this movie made me think about the Twitter prompt that you guys may have seen where it's, you know, like replace all the actors with Muppets except for one person, because that's kind of what this movie is. Like, we see the parents briefly, but other than that, like we have Jareth, we have Sarah, and we have Toby, who also, by the way, after just watching Reservoir Dogs, I just kept saying that line in my fucking head, like Toby Wong, Toby Wang, Toby Chong, fucking Charlie Chan. Like, I thought that every single time she called out for Toby. It's like, gotta get Keitel out of my head. That's all I could hear.
Alex thinks that's the Toby from The Office. That's his origin story. That's why he's so weird, because he was kidnapped as a child.
Looks like him. I like that.
That was a pretty.
I think
good
it's
theory.
canon now.
Yeah, I was
That's
into
good.
it. I was like, I'm for sure going to mention that at some point.
Yes, that's perfect.
Michael?
Yes, Toby.
I need to talk to you in your office. It'll just take 2 seconds.
Literally 2 seconds? Toby is in HR, which technically means he works for corporate, so he's really not a part of our family. Also, he's divorced, so he's really not a part of his family.
But yeah, I was just kind of curious, quickly, if you guys had an idea of a movie that you would do that with, like replace the whole cast with Muppets except for one person. What would be your movie, Greydon?
I hope you guys don't hate me for saying this. Fast and Furious. Keep Vin Diesel. Replace everybody else with Muppets.
I'm into it.
Yes, I like that a lot.
I live my life a quarter mile at a time.
Someday you'll find it. The Family Connection. I'd watch that. I'd watch them so many times.
At some point they have to figure out something else to do. So maybe like
That's true.
Fast 12 or whatever. I don't know what they're on now. Yeah, around 9, right? So Fast 12 can be like, it worked for Community. They had a whole puppet episode.
That was a great episode. Yeah. Just think about that scene from the first Fast and Furious where like Brian's driving while staring at the girl, and then Vin Diesel's like, "Oh, to do that thing that I taught him," and like just him saying that to a Muppet, like, "Oh, to do that." He looks you the whole time, like, "Live my life a quarter mile at a time."
Little Muppets.
Muppets like cheersing some Coronas. Oh, that'd be awesome. I like that. What about you, Matt?
Oh, we kind of brought this up when we did our Christmas watch party, and we watched the Muppets Christmas Carol, and the Ghost of Christmas Present was very Hagrid like.
Yep.
And so I'd love to see a Harry Potter Muppets where pretty much any fantasy like is a good genre to replace with Muppets. Like, I think, you do Lord of the Rings and make Gandalf the human and everyone else a Muppet. That could be pretty funny.
Who do you keep in Harry Potter as the human? Harry makes the most sense, but I kind of want Ron just be surrounded by all these Muppets.
Ron would be hilarious.
Not me, not Hermione, you.
His best friend, the hero, is a Muppet as well.
Never live up.
Yeah. But I also think it would be hilarious to have like an Uncut Gems Muppet show. Man. Shout out to Ethan.
This is me. This is how I win.
But KG is the only human. So like everyone's a Muppet, and then KG comes into the shop every once in a while. Oh my god!
Anyone from that crew, even if you just leave Lakeith and everyone else is a Muppet, Lakeith is there, like, just representing KG Muppet. Oh, that'd be so fun.
Yeah, honestly, any of your favorite movies, you would probably be okay with seeing a Muppet version of. For me, the first thing I thought of was The Big Lebowski, but I was like, that's just because that's what I think of when anyone asks me about anything movie related. That's the first movie that pops in my head. Mm-hmm. But then I got thinking about it because I was like, I want to pick a movie that like has like wacky, zany characters that like would translate well to being a puppet. But then I was like, I need Walter Muppet or the puppet Walter in my life.
Oh my god,
Puppet Donnie, Puppet Jesus. So like, if everyone but the dude was a puppet, I think would be pretty incredible. And it could work too. When he gets beat up at the very beginning of the movie, they knock him out, he wakes up, and now everyone's puppets, right? Like,
oh, that'd be great.
I could definitely be into that, and it'd be like a fun like fan project or something. But and also I had a weird pitch. I want to see No Country for Old Puppets, where everyone's a Muppet except for Anton Chigurh.
Oh my gosh. Just putting up that cattle prod all these Muppet heads. Oh my god.
I just think that would be
so good.
So silly. And like, yeah, I don't know.
You thought Labyrinth was dark.
Yeah. And I just
Kidding.
I like just changing the name to No Country for Old Puppets.
I love that. We mentioned Lebowski and Puppet Walter. My first thought was that diner scene.
Right.
Like, you want a fucking toe? I'll get you a toe.
And I can just picture him slamming his coffee and with the strings on his wrist, you know, from the pup. I just want to see all of that. I think that'd be incredible.
I'm staying here, finishing this. Yeah, mine might be like recency bias. I don't know, but I just love the idea of a Reservoir Dogs with puppets, but you leave Tim Roth, you know, there because he doesn't talk, you know, like the whole time he's dying, you know, there's a part where you just have like an actual human dying on the side, but all these puppets are talking to each other.
Puppet
like,
Keitel screaming, he'll be okay too.
Yeah, exactly.
The torture scene.
Yeah.
Oh my God. Yeah. Little puppet Michael Madsen just doing his little strut and stuff. I think that'd be so funny. And then Tim Roth like rehearsing his story with like the puppet cop and just like in the bathroom and stuff. I don't know. I would like to see that. Probably recency bias, but I still think it'd be pretty fun to watch.
That's what I mean. Like you could say like, oh, Pulp Fiction would be funny. Like you could.
Yeah.
It's like it's a fun exercise to think about, and I don't know.
I mean, you mentioned favorite movies, and I'm picturing Ferris Bueller, but just like with Cameron still being Alan Ruck,
right?
But like everyone else is puppets. Like,
well, that works for like
hilarious.
The fan theory that everything is in his head, anyways. You know,
exactly. Yeah, I love that. And then Puppet Sloan asking him if he watched her while she undressed and staring at her. Anyways, I'm just gonna keep saying scenes from all the movies that we get. But I want to get into the Rushmore now. I think Bowie kind of lends itself to a Rushmore about musicians who take on acting roles, even though we know them specifically as musicians. There was like I was looking up some lists, and some person mentioned Wahlberg and Boogie Nights, which like I appreciate, but he's much more of an actor than a musician to me. I know he started out in music, but that didn't work for me. Otherwise, you know, I probably would have thrown that on my list. But I want, you know, people who are known as musicians who took on some acting roles, and just want to build a Rushmore around that.
These are OR scrubs.
Oh, are they?
I want to throw it to Matt to hear his answers.
Let's just start off with a movie starring Gina Davis, Tom Hanks, and Madonna in A League of Their Own.
Ever heard of her?
Ever heard of Madonna? Madonna.
Speaking about people that
don't ever do that again.
Madonna. Tyler, you were saying something?
Oh, just speaking of people that reinvent themselves.
Yeah.
And also ties into Reservoir Dogs.
That's true.
We're going full circle on pretty much everything.
A lot of full circles.
Yeah.
I think it's like the 5th full circle. We have our own Olympics logo right now for this episode of all these full circles.
We love circles. It's our favorite shape.
We do.
Oh, I love them.
Yeah.
Got to go Lenny Kravitz in Hunger Games.
Yeah. It's a good one.
He was great in that. Appropriately cast, I think. He totally made sense in that.
Yeah, I
loved it.
I can't think of a Lenny Kravitz song. So to me, he's just that dude in Hunger Games. I can't even remember his name in Hunger Games, but I remember him in his.
Yep.
Yeah.
The only song I can think of his is a cover. It's not even his song. So like, I have no idea what Lenny Kravitz sings.
You know, the great cover artist, Lenny Kravitz. Got to put Bowie from Labyrinth on the Rushmore. And then I guess recently we have Lady Gaga from A Star Is Born. And I got to do an honorable mention, Weird Al in UHF.
Oh.
Spatula City.
I still need to see UHF.
That's a really good one. I like that. Gaga's great. I don't know if any of you guys have watched the American Horror Story stuff, all those Ryan Murphy series. I haven't watched all of them, but I mean, I think she won, or at least was nominated for an Emmy for one of her performances in there.
Yeah,
so
I can't wait for Gucci.
Yeah. Oh, you kidding me? I cannot wait. Adam Driver, Gaga. This is going to be
I didn't even know that was
movie
a
of the
thing.
year for us.
It's going to be a big year.
Oh, sweet.
Big year for the pod.
I'll look forward to it. I still haven't seen A Star Is Born either. So
the new one? Yeah.
Yeah. Well, either of them, but yeah, the Lady Gaga one specifically. But speaking of A Star Is Born, originally that stars Chris Christopherson, who makes my list, not for A Star Is Born, but as Blade, or from not Blade, but what's his name? I can't remember his character's name in Blade, but I just loved his character so much. He was so silly.
It was like,
yeah, no, I'm sorry. I'm laughing at myself because I remember talking about him as the guy from Star is Born. You're like, what? Like, that's not what he is. Like, I have no idea who he is outside of like the second remake of Star is Born.
Well, I just
like
meant
4
like
of them.
That's
now.
not only what he was, is what I meant.
Yeah, exactly. But that's all he was.
Whistler.
To
What's
me,
his name?
so.
Whistler? Whistler?
Yeah, that sounds right.
Yeah.
I loved your reaction. Like, that's how we're going to talk about him, the guy from Star is Born. Like, yes,
sure.
that's how I am going
Which
to.
is to be fair, I was a little harsh, but I have more of a.
You were right. Yeah.
And then my boy Eminem for 8 Mile, he's got to go on there.
Mm-hmm.
Will Smith, we talked about on our summer movie draft. He literally owned most summers of my adolescence. So
He did.
I'll put specifically MIB, but ID4, as a solid 1B there. But I recently watched Men in Black not too long ago. That movie fucking rules. It holds up so well.
Mm-hmm.
It's so good.
Yeah.
And then I put, I'll go.
I
with
know
it.
you're being humble, but you're also reserving the fact that your front chest piece is the Wild Wild West movie poster. So we know that you love that Will Smith movie as well.
Yes.
So Will Smith up front
and the song
Bowie in the back. Yeah. Yes. All the lyrics of the song.
And then I put Don Glover on there, Childish Gambino. I put Solo on here specifically. I mean, but obviously I know him more for obviously Community and stuff, but I love Don Glover, so
I'm gonna ride those coattails for Donald Glover. He was just, I mean, we heard about his casting, like, oh, that's the perfect person to play a young Lando, and he killed it. But arguably, Community, he's fantastic in that as well. Flea in Big Lebowski, I don't even know if he has like a word in there, but I just picture him with those big ass scissors, like running and stuff like that. Like, I like the idea of the nihilist, and I think he's great.
And it's just cool that it's like an LA movie. I mean, most movies are LA movies, but this one's pretty specifically an LA movie, and he's such a specific LA character, so it's cool that he got to be like in that little canon,
Yeah, totally makes sense. A movie that we watched early on in the history of this podcast, The Farewell. I think Awkwafina was so good in that. And she's another reason I'm excited for Shang-Chi and just anything that she does. Nora from Queens, I think she's great. And again, I think that kind of a lot of these roles that we're talking about just backs up the idea that if you have a good stage performer, they'll probably do well on screen because they're just like natural. This is who they are, So I think a lot of these people are that same way. And then just it's probably a cameo. I don't know like what you consider a cameo or not. He shows up a couple times, but Justin Timberlake in Social Network. I thought he's great in that. I mean, it's obviously kind of the catalyst and that whole line, like, what's cooler than $1 million? $1 billion. Like all that stuff, that the ending scene where Andrew Garfield, he's like, oh, he's tapped in right now. Like it's a minor role, but I think if it's played wrong, it's not good. It's the dude who started Napster.
He was like playing it. I didn't love his performance in that. I love the character. Well, love the character. I like the character and I like parts of it, but there's just some times where I'm just like, I'm not buying it. I'm not really like some of his line readings to me come off a little flat and like maybe trying a little too hard, but that's just
interesting.
I mean, that's to say like he seems like you're giving him an A. I'm giving him like a B. You know what I mean? But
for
not
sure.
to say it's like a bad performance, but I think it's hard because the dialogue is so snappy and specific, and the people he's surrounded with are so good with that dialogue, and they're great actors, and he's like by far the worst actor on that cast.
Yeah, that's
you know what
fair.
I mean? So it just stands out.
Totally fair.
But
yeah,
because I would have put him on. I thought about putting him on my list, but I just was like, he's my least favorite part of that movie. But
which is it's totally understandable. I think for me, it's just got some of the most iconic stuff from that movie, which is saying a lot. Like even that whole scene where he's like, talking about the founder of Victoria's Secret and why he like committed suicide and stuff like that. Like he's got some good roles. I do think he plays it like a characterization, like almost or caricature. But I think that was kind of on purpose, that they were just kind of reflecting that this dude from Napster is kind of like that, because I think he kind of was. But everything said is totally valid. But he's he's on my list.
I will say this:
those would be mine.
when I think about the dude from Napster, when I think about Sean Parker, the picture in my head is Justin Timberlake. So I guess it was effective.
Those curly cues up top. What about you, Greydon? Do you have a Rushmore of some of your favorite actors or musicians as actors?
First that comes to mind is my personal favorite, Jack White as Elvis Presley and Dewey Cox.
Oh, that's right.
It's very short. Call. It's so short.
So good.
No, but it's good. Yeah.
Yeah. Listen to this right now. There's two things you need to know. I'm the king. And number two is look out, man. Look at that. They're coming at you. You see that? It's called karate, man. And only two kinds of people know it. The Chinese and the king. One of them is me.
Just big Jack White fan. And then, not to say it for the umpteenth time, but to really just connect this full circle here. We got Michael Jackson in MIB 2. It's super short. And I don't know if you guys remember it. It just like shows him on a video screen and they like refer to him as Agent M.
Oh, that's right. That's right.
God,
yeah.
And it's like, it's really short and it's just kind of a normal role for him.
Yeah.
Which is funny too, because isn't Rip Torn in MIB 2 as well?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And Rip Torn is like one of the leading guys in Man Who Fell to Earth, like with David Bowie.
Yeah.
Oh my God. That's right.
So,
yes.
Just all the
another
circles.
circle.
But
the synchronicity episode.
Yeah, we're gonna be Shang-Chi and the 10 Rings here. We got like 10 full circles this episode.
If I had to pick the most iconic, maybe it's a duo. It's like Billy Idol in Wedding Singer with Adam Sandler.
Oh, I did not
on the airplane scene.
Yeah. So good.
But I'm kind of torn. I'm Rip Torn. I'm like, is it Billy Idol as the musician, or is it Adam Sandler at this point as the musician? I don't know.
It's true.
I'll let you decide.
Solid duo. I love that. That's awesome. And yeah, I think, to Matt's point too, I think Bowie would just have to be on everyone's for this. His performance was really iconic, I guess, to say the very least. Yeah. So, I don't know.
I think I'm going to amend my list. I just remembered.
He's putting Justin Timberlake on it.
I'm going to put Justin Timberlake on.
I convinced him, yes.
But from that one movie where he's running out of time.
Friends with Benefits.
Yeah, that's the one.
Justin Timberlake.
We actually watched that movie not too long ago in the van. Like, I think it was.
Oh.
We were on a trip.
Mila Kunis, is that who's opposite him? Yeah.
Rushmore Mountain. Big one for me there.
Nice.
Justin Timberlake, obviously. I'm going to take off Christopherson only because I can't.
Okay.
Whistler.
I feel bad about it. I really do. But I want to put Jennifer Lopez from Hustlers on here. Because she's really, really, really good in that.
Damn, that is good.
And yeah. So
Snubbed.
Sorry, Chris. You're my boy. I've defended you once on the pod. But you got to make way for the queen here. J to the LO coming in hot.
Surprised you didn't go Geely.
I thought about it. Well, what got me thinking about it, I was like, oh yeah, Cardi B's in Hustlers. I'm like, wait. Fucking Jennifer Lopez is in Hustlers. She's incredible because Cardi B's whatever in that movie. I love Cardi, but
she's just Cardi B.
I want to party with Cardi for sure, but J-Lo knocks it out of the park, I think, in that movie.
Yeah, I mean, is there anything else we want to bring up about Labyrinth or the circle around it?
I do want to shout out George Strait in Pure Country. Honorable mention for Rushmore. I doubt any of you ever seen it, but my mom is a George Strait fanatic, and she flew down to Vegas to be an extra in the movie. So somewhere in the movie, she's in like a concert scene. So it's like she's literally just in the crowd of the concert. But she's in there somewhere. I always remember thinking about that. Like, and I've always wanted to talk about it on the pod. So I had to find a moment. And I actually, that movie's not terrible. It's whatever.
I don't think I've heard of it.
Yeah. He plays a bull rider, if I remember right. He's
like George Strait.
Yeah. George is great.
I think we have to, if we're going to have a movie podcast and we're going to talk about David Bowie, I think we have to talk about Duncan Jones.
Yeah.
And at least let our audience know that Duncan exists. He's David Bowie's son. He's a movie director. Go see Warcraft. Check out Warcraft. I actually haven't seen Warcraft.
I haven't either.
I want to.
Moon was great though. Moon's phenomenal. It's a really, really good movie. Paulcher recommended that one to me a long time ago.
Yeah, that was another one that like really stuck with me after I when I watched that, I was like, oh, I did not know what I was getting into. That was so good. Also, I mean, I don't know if any of you guys saw it, but Source Code, the Gyllenhaal movie, better than it probably should have been. Like, it was actually a pretty good movie. So,
did he do that one as
Jones movie? Yeah, Maggie would have been better. We know that.
That's obvious,
clearly. But yeah, Source Code is fun as well. So
I didn't know. I wasn't interested in that until you said Duncan Jones did it. So yeah, I'll watch that at some point. Maybe.
Yeah, that feels like it was like a midnight. I'm awake. What am I going to put on? Like, let's watch this and see. And it was better than I thought it was going to be. So yeah, I mean, if you got time, if you got an hour and 33 minutes, it looks like, then yeah, give it a shot.
Duncan Jones.
I appreciate a succinct movie like that.
We're
in and out,
there,
90 minutes.
What'd you say, Greydon?
You said Jake Gyllenhaal?
Uh-huh.
We'll talk about Rushmore, 30 Seconds to Mars, right?
Yeah.
Is he in that one?
Jokes. That's my boy Jay Leto.
We know.
Oh yeah, Jared Leto.
Just give him longer hair and they just look so similar.
They're exactly the same.
All I can think of when you said that is the story that, speaking of Full Circle and Devilock and being in bands, we used to work with the guy at SkyWest that he did stage setups for, like, he does like the Salt Lake City Arts Festival and whatever. He has a whole crew of dudes that they're like stage grips, you know? And we would go work with him occasionally, and our guitar player went and worked with him for the 30 Seconds to Mars show. And according to him, you know, take it with a grain of salt. He's also a pretty unreliable source, but apparently Leto had like tape on his guitar neck to show like where the chords were for each song, like a color coded on the back of the neck.
Yeah, color coded, right? Like, I kept thinking of Guitar Hero.
So he would know, like, the red song, I go to 1, I go to 3, you know? And then he also wouldn't allow anyone to look him in the eyes, according to
that was on his rider.
And
I think that all tracks.
That's what I was like, whether or not it's true, that's going into my like Leto canon. Like that's how he is.
We write Jared Leto fan fiction. And Tyler has a blog where
maybe he just was like, maybe he was just having the worst day. Maybe he was on like allergy medicine and his vision was blurry, so they had to put the things on his guitar neck and he didn't. I don't know. Who knows? I'm sorry.
Or maybe he's just Jared Leto.
Maybe he's just Jared Leto.
Sometimes you're just Jared Leto.
Jared, if you're listening, like and subscribe, please.
I would have loved it so much.
6
Jared,
Jokers. I don't know how many Jokers there have been, but you're in the top 7 or however many.
Just with the way you surprised me with the Animal Kingdom intro, I was expecting you to say, Jared, if you're listening, go fuck yourself. I would have been so happy, but
that would have been good.
You can just cut me in saying only that, and
Jared, if you're listening,
go fuck yourself.
You're an anti-Jared Leto podcast.
Sorry, Steve.
Greydon, thanks so much for coming on. This was awesome. Something I've wanted to do for a while, have you on. So I appreciate you making the time.
And thank you for the song,
making our theme song. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, of course. Happy to help.
Killer.
Happy to be here.
It feels like some sort of like weirdly official, like we have a theme song. Like this is, I don't have to like steal from your other songs.
Some lyrics.
It's yours.
It's funny. I had grown so fond of the music that we were using, which it was just a song of yours, right? It like you didn't write it for us, but you allowed us to use it.
Yeah, he did the outro music. We used a different intro song. I used Umbels for our outro.
Oh, okay, yeah, so that's fun. I thought that was your song, the intro song, the whole time.
No, that was some Creative Commons something I found that I used.
Gotcha. But I like the new one better. So it was just I didn't know that you had done it, and so I was like, oh, he recorded a new one for us. And so
this is awesome. Do you want to again just like let people know where they can find you? I mean, I know just recorded some new stuff in the studio, so album coming out eventually, but let people know where they can find you and follow you guys.
Yeah, absolutely. You can listen to us, Umbels, UMBELS, on Spotify, Apple Music, all that good stuff. Bandcamp if you can't pay for Spotify. If you want to follow us on social media, we just use Instagram, so /Umbels Band.
Nice. Well, yeah, thank you again for joining us. This was a lot of fun. It's a good excuse to rewatch Labyrinth and revisit what felt like my childhood and my adolescence. I don't know, I feel like this has been like a This Is Your Life episode for me. Just talking about all the bands and everything. Yeah, it's been fun. But yeah, thank you everyone for listening and supporting us. Again, if you want to like and subscribe, leave us a review. That's super helpful. It helps other people that like movie podcasts find us. That'd be very appreciated. And then find us where? The threefilmspod.com. All of our stuff is there. Our merch, our links to listen or watch, whatever you want to do. Our patrons there. Thank you again for your support, and we will see you guys next week.
Bye, everyone.
See ya.
Chubby little loser. Chubby little loser. National joke. No, not chubby little loser. No. Pathetic little fat man. No one's bloody laughing. The clown that no one laughs at. They all just wish he died. He's so depressed at being useless. The fat man takes his own life. No. He's so depressed at being hated. Fatty takes his own life. Fatso?
Fatso, I like Fatso.
Yeah, let's go with Fatso.